The sun struggled to rise over Cleveland Elementary School on a foggy Monday morning. Inside, Principal Miller adjusted his tie, unaware he was living his last normal day. Across town, 16-year-old Brenda Spencer loaded her .22 caliber rifle with chilling precision. She stared out her window directly at the school playground, a blank expression on her face. "I don't like Mondays," she whispered to the silent, empty house around her. Meanwhile, Detective Eva Rostova sipped bitter coffee, reviewing a separate cold case file. The first school children began to arrive, their laughter echoing in the crisp air. Custodian Mike waved hello, his cheerful greeting masking a deep, personal worry. Brenda raised her rifle, resting the barrel steadily on her windowsill, taking aim. The first shot cracked through the morning silence, shattering the school's peace forever. The bullet struck Custodian Mike in the shoulder, spinning him around in shock and pain. Children screamed and scattered like frightened birds, dropping their books and lunches. From her perch, Brenda calmly worked the bolt of her rifle, seeking another target. Principal Miller burst out of the school doors, his heart pounding against his ribs. "Get inside. Everyone run," he yelled, his voice cracking with raw fear. A second shot rang out, and the principal collapsed onto the cold concrete. Across town, Detective Rostova's radio erupted with frantic, coded dispatches of shots fired at school. She dropped her coffee, the ceramic mug shattering on the floor as she ran for her car. Brenda continued her grim work, firing round after round into the panicked crowd below. The schoolyard, once filled with laughter, was now a terrifying maze of hiding spots. Sirens wailed in the distance, a growing scream of hope and dread. Inside a classroom, a teacher barricaded the door with a heavy bookshelf, her hands trembling. She saw the small, still body of a child near the swing set, covered by a jacket. "The shooter is in that house," an officer shouted, pointing a finger towards Brenda's window. Up in her room, Brenda saw the police arrival and smiled a thin, cruel smile. Rostova grabbed a bullhorn, her voice cutting through the tension. "This is the police. Surrender now." The only response was another gunshot that shattered the windshield of a patrol car. "We have to get the children out," Rostova ordered, her mind racing through the nightmare. A team of officers began a dangerous crawl, using vehicles as shields to reach the school. Inside, a terrified child sobbed silently behind a teacher's desk, hands over their ears. Brenda suddenly stopped firing, creating an eerie and unsettling silence. "She's reloading or changing position," a SWAT commander whispered into his radio. Detective Rostova used the pause to coordinate the evacuation of a first-grade classroom. Through his pain, Custodian Mike pointed officers toward a hidden side exit for escape. The phone in Brenda's house suddenly rang, the sound jarring in the tense standoff. A police negotiator's calm voice filled the line. "Brenda, let's talk about what's happening." Brenda picked up the phone and simply said, "I'm doing this because I don't like Mondays." Her chilling words were broadcast to the stunned command post, freezing everyone who heard them. Rostova knew then this was not a hostage situation, but a predatory hunt from a fortified lair. "We can't wait," Rostova declared, authorizing a tactical breach of the house. Inside the school, a paramedic finally reached the wounded Principal Miller. The SWAT team moved like shadows, silently crossing the street towards Brenda's home. Brenda heard a floorboard creak downstairs and immediately raised her rifle. The front door splintered open with a deafening crash from a police battering ram. "Police, show us your hands," echoed through the small, cluttered living room. Upstairs, Brenda fired a wild shot through her closed bedroom door at the noise. The return volley of fire from the police was immediate and overwhelming. When the shooting stopped, an officer kicked the shattered door completely open. They found Brenda on the floor, wounded in the arm, her rifle just out of reach. Detective Rostova entered the room and saw the teenage shooter, now just a helpless, wounded girl. "It's over," Rostova stated, her voice flat and final as she holstered her weapon. Outside, a wave of relieved cheers and sobs erupted from the evacuated children and teachers. Brenda was read her rights as a medic bandaged her arm, her face an empty mask. Rostova looked from the rifle to the perfect line of sight it had of the school playground. In the police car, Brenda hummed a tuneless song, completely detached from the devastation. The full, horrifying toll was announced. 2 dead, including Principal Miller, and 9 children wounded. That evening, Rostova sat in the dark silence of her office, unable to erase the day's images. She opened Brenda's juvenile file, seeking a reason in a history of neglect and trouble. What? Rostova whispered to the silent file, a question with no satisfactory answer. The city mourned, holding a candlelight vigil for the victims of the shooting. At the courthouse, Brenda pleaded not guilty, her small voice shocking the packed room. Custodian Mike, his arm in a sling, gave a tearful press conference from his hospital bed. Rostova visited the now-quiet Spencer house, a shrine to isolation and anger. She found a crumpled note in Brenda's drawer with the words, "Nobody ever listens." The trial began, and the prosecutor held up the .22 rifle for the jury to see. A child survivor bravely testified, describing the loud pops and his friend falling. 68. Brenda's court-appointed psychiatrist described her as profoundly detached from reality. 69. The jury returned with a guilty verdict after only a few hours of deliberation. 70. Brenda was sentenced to life in prison, showing no emotion as the judge spoke. 71. Years later, Detective Rostova, now retired, still visited the school's memorial plaque. 72. She wondered if the system had failed Brenda long before Brenda failed society. 73. One afternoon, she received a letter on plain, institutional paper from the state penitentiary. 74. Dear Detective, it began, I still don't like Mondays, but now every day is the same. 75. The letter was a request, not for forgiveness, but simply for someone to listen to her story. 76. Rostova drove through the rolling hills, arriving at the high-security women's prison. 77. She sat in a sterile visiting room, waiting for the woman who had been the girl with the rifle. 78. A door buzzed open, and a weary, middle-aged Brenda Spencer was led inside. 79. She picked up the phone receiver and said, "You came. I didn't think you would." 80. Everyone deserves to be heard, Brenda, Rostova replied, her detective's instincts still alive. 81. Brenda spoke of a lonely childhood,